Hey there, folks. So, last episode we got our behavior tree task created in C++. And as mentioned, this episode we're going to be setting up the really rudimentary AI just to make sure our task is working. So, in our blueprints, I'm going to go into our dev folder, right click, new blueprint class, and this is going to be TF-NPC. So we have our TF-NPC character. We're going to select that. And I'm just going to call this dev_BP roaming AI. And we're going to save that. And I put that as D, not dev. But I'll fix that in a moment here. So we have our basic. So our mesh. Actually, I'm going to move this. You can let me move. Thank you. Where did that move to? That's right there. Let's drag that down a little bit. I really dislike how the editor is so unresponsive sometimes. With that, though, we're going to go to our third-person folder. This is where I started the series. I threw everything from the third-person template in here, so it was easy to find. Going to our characters, our mannequins, and we're going to go into the mannequins, not the UE4 mannequin. The reason being is the animation blueprints and everything for the UE4 mannequin isn't set up. It just has control rigs and stuff so that you can backport the animations. We want just the mannequins folder. We want the mesh, and we want Manny. Just because we're going to work, this is the base one that we're using. So go back to our NPC character here. Maximize that. We're going to set that as our skeletal mesh. And you'll notice it's up in the air and turned sideways. So we need to rotate it 90 degrees. No, negative 90 degrees. And we need to bring it down a bit. So I'm going to throw on snapping to 10. And change that to left view. And we want that root to be there. Actually, I think it's 96 we want. No. Minus 86. I'm just going to leave it minus 90. We can actually confirm that here. If we go back to our content browser and look at our blueprint for our player character. Its mesh is minus 90, 270. Okay, and that 270 is the same as minus 90. So let's put that in here. 270 rotates the same way. We'll go back to perspective. Now you can see it's T-posing because there's no animation blueprint. But I want to just point out quickly, we do have a stat line, we do have an inventory, and we have the default character movement component because those are being added as part of the TF character class, which the TF NPC derives from. So animation blueprint is what we want to use. And I believe it's the Manny one. We can just check here because the player character is still using Quinn. Come on, editor. Why are you being unresponsive? As you can see, the player character here is still using the Quinn. So it's using the ABP Quinn anim class. We want to use the ABP Manny anim class. So we've got that set up there. Now in here, we have our behavior tree. Well, that's currently none. We want to set that to our random one. And we're going to hit save. Now I'm going to move this out of the way and move the content browser out of the way for a second. Now there's one thing we are currently missing in our test level here, and that's a nav mesh. So right click on that and just type nav, and you're going to get a nav mesh bounds volume. That's the one you want to start with. This is a volume that is going to be used to generate your nav mesh. Let's just set that top. Zoom out a bit, and you can see it's off in a weird place. So let's just zero out its location. Go back to our perspective, and you can see it's now down there. You want to drag this to roughly the middle because you need to scale it to the correct. Oh, actually, apparently I'm having nav mesh visible. So I'm going to hit P, and I'll explain that in a moment. That just gets rid of the visual nav mesh. We're going to, okay, you're extending out the back there. Yeah, that's good. and scale it to the other way. And now we also want to, just to be safe, we actually want to scale this up as well, because we want the nav mesh to include those buildings. So scale this up and then drag it up. So it's about there. Now, if you, as I said, you hit P on your keyboard, that is going to enable the preview of your nav mesh. Now, right now, you can see it's not showing much. For some reason, I think it's because I pulled that up too high. So you can see in here, though, we've got some green within the building. Nav mesh allows stuff to walk, is going to be able to allow characters to get inside, but it's not all the way down here. And the reason being for that, let me find the edge. I have to go all the way down this end. You can see here it's way too high. So what we need to do is just bring that down to just under the bounds there. And you can see it's now, we've got all of these. It's generated nav mesh on the top of these objects here, even though there's no direct path to them. And that's where that reachable aspect of the navigation mesh comes into play. Because these, if we didn't use reachable, it could generate a point on these, and we don't want that. So now one thing you will notice is our doors are blocking the nav mesh. We don't want that. Something we'll have to fix in another episode though. So we've got that nav mesh in, so let's drop in that AI. So I'm going to go to our dev. I'm going to quickly fix that name. And dev BP roaming AI. Drop that in, and I'm actually going to, there's our player start there. I'm going to put it so we can visually see it. And let's see if this is going to work for us. So launch play. Well, it's not doing anything. Well, what have we done wrong here? So I already know what that is, and this was an intentional one because I've stumbled into this issue a dozen or so times. I'm going to open up our dev AI blueprint, but I'm also going to hop over to code quick because I want to show you what the issue is. So in here, we are specifically looking for the TF AI controller base. Okay. If we type controller, the AI controller class is just AI controller. So we need to change that to the TF controller base, compile, and save that. And let's try this again. Okay, now you can see it's moving. Now, there's no animation for that, but it's because the animation blueprint is off. There's some logic in there we need to fix. But you can see it's now walking around, moving to random locations. So that task we created last episode is functioning. Let's fix that blueprint issue, though, or the animation blueprint issue. I'll rephrase that. So select a character, get rid of this. We're going to just open that up by selecting the finding content browser, and I'm going to open that up so we can actually start working on it. And right now I can tell you the issue is, let's see, so TF player character, yeah, okay, so we're casting to a player character, we're getting the movement component, okay. So is the character valid? Well, this is going to fail because it's not a player character. So what we want to do here is cast to TF character, because all of this logic that we're dealing with is available to a TF character, not a player character. I'm going to delete this, and we're going to find the reference character, and this is TF character. Object reference, do you want to change that? Yes. It's going to throw up this window because it's going to search through and find any place that this could cause problems. We've got a get, a set, and a get. Okay, well, that's not an issue. I'm going to close that out, actually. Bring up this cast. We're going to throw that in here, connect, and assign that value there. We'll just hit compile. Well, now we've got an error. Lean amount isn't something that's exposed to the player, to the TF character. So, and this is the reason why I'm working through this the way I'm doing it. I'm intentionally leaving mistakes in because you're going to have these sort of mistakes as you go through. So what do we do to fix this? We have two options. Because NPCs can lean, we could move, like if say you're having a raider NPC, you want to have your AI go up to a corner, lean around and take a look, which is something I want to do if I can get my AI working that way. What you can do there is you can just move that lean from the player character to your character base. So if we look at the player character, we have, our lean amount, which is a private variable that we have exposed. And all you have to do there is, in this case, we want to change that from a private variable in the player character to a protected variable on the character base, so the TF character class. So we're just going to look at our protected section and drop that in there. And the reason being is protected, for anyone who's not 100% up to speed with C++, because I understand there's, from comments and things, there's people who aren't experienced C++ developers. Protected is a area that this class and any class that derives from it can access. So what we're going to do here, I'm just going to save this blueprint or animation blueprint. We're going to close out of this, close out of the editor. I'd actually launched that. We want to save those. I'd actually launched it from the Epic launcher because I wanted to be a little more responsive than running through the editor. So what we do now is literally we just do a build. And from there, we will be back into the editor once this build is finished and I've launched into things. All right, so that build's completed and we're back in the editor. So we're going to open up that animation blueprint again and we're going to take a look to see. This should have fixed our problem. So all right, so you can see character, which is still, it's saying an unknown class, but it's TF character. And we're pulling lean amount. So we're going to compile and save that there. Now, this isn't going to fix our problem, because this is the, actually, no, that might. But right here, this is looking at movement component, get current acceleration, if the ground speed, however that's set up. So let's just take a look, actually, before I say that's not going to work. So we're going to launch our play in editor here, and you can see they're still not moving. So let's fix that. So with that, how do we go about fixing this? Well, honestly, as I've said in the past, animations are not my strong suit. I'm not great with the AnimBP. I'm going to have to do a lot of learning when it comes to animations. I can say, however, this initial animation BP we're working with here, it's a placeholder. So any work we're doing here is going to be replaced by other AnimBPs as we go through. Like, as I mentioned, the intent for this particular AI that we're working on right now is for a deer. Obviously, its animations are going to be completely different. So what we've got here is just a rudimentary setup to make sure things are working. So what I'm going to do, drag this out of the way because we don't need the falling portion right now. And we need to make some changes in here. The problem being is this right here is something that is unique to the player character and taking input from the player controller. Well, we're not, in the AI's case, we're not taking input from the player controller. We're taking input from an AI controller. So what we want, get owning actor. No, is it get owning actor? No, it's controlled pawn. So right click pawn, try get pawn owner. Player controlled. And this right here is player controlled. This is going to be our decider. So what we want is drag off the should move and type in select, and it's going to give you your wildcard selector. We're going to go player controlled is our index to select from. So if it is player controlled, we want to use this whole and statement. Otherwise, we just want to look at our ground speed, because up here you can see where we're setting that. We're getting our movement component, our velocity, and we're determining from that how fast we're moving. So if our ground speed is greater than 0, is what we want to use there. So this should, and it's a little messy. Let's try and clean this up. This is why I don't like working in blueprints, is the spaghetti mess you end up with. And it can be a little awkward to try and set these in positions where they don't die, or don't overlap and become a tangled mess. So what we've done there, to just reiterate, sorry, my brain's going 100 miles an hour right now. We're getting the movement component, getting its current acceleration, which is the player character. That is not something that is applied to AI controllers. There's no acceleration because it's accounting for things like sticks on controllers. So if you're setting this up for like an Xbox or PlayStation, you have your controls that have a degree of movement, and you can have slow, fast, things like that. So that's what this is for. It's to determine how fast the character is increasing their acceleration. And that's not something that's applied to AI. So we have this logic here, which is what we want to bypass, because that is what is failing for the AI to move, or to animate, I should say. It's just seen as standing still. So we have this. If it's controlled by the player, we want to account for the acceleration. If it's not controlled by the player, we just want to look at its ground speed. So if we compile and save that, I'm going to move this out of the way, and now we hit play. You can see our NPC is walking. And actually, I targeted those speeds, the default speed, pretty good. I don't see much in the way of a foot slide. Oh, bumped my mouse there. But as you can see, the NPC is now walking around. So let's move them a little faster, though. So I'm going to close out of the Anim blueprint, and we're going to open up that AI blueprint we created in our dev section. So open that up and pull it over here. So this is just the defaults, because we have no defined functions in here or anything like that. But it's easy enough. We have our little stat line section here in movement. We can go through and set our basics. So I'm going to increase the speed to 250. Compile and save that. And I'm just going to move this out of the way and hit play in editor. So now you can see he is moving a lot faster. And again, it doesn't look like there's any foot slide or anything like that. Oh. I wonder if there's a minimum you can add, because he's not moving much. I'll have to look into that. But you can see they're walking around, and we could follow him around for hours and figure out, well, will he go into the building? Will he not? Things like that. But that is where I want to end this episode, folks. Like I've said, I'm going to try and keep these episodes on the shorter side just because, well, they do better. So next episode, we're actually going to, let me pull up this behavior tree here. We're going to expand on this behavior tree, because right now you can see we have our very basic setup here. We're finding a point in reachable radius, we're moving to it, and then we're going to stand for a random duration. What I want to have is I want to have some logic in place where, oh, it sees another AI, or sorry, it sees another character. And from that, it then decides, okay, do I want to run away? Do I want to ignore it? Things like that. And that, again, like I said, referencing deer. In this case, like if a deer sees, say, a rabbit, it's not going to be too worried about it. But if it sees a wolf, a bear, a human in the wild, they run away. And I want to add that sort of behavior in. So that's what we're going to start working on next episode. And that's going to require some additional steps in there, because we're going to need to worry about perception and things like that. So that's where I'll end things for now. So with that, though, folks, thank you for watching. As always, if you have any comments, questions, concerns, suggestions, feel free to leave them in the comments below, and I will see you in the next episode.